Well, welcome to this Wednesday's Pastoral Encouragement, and I'd like to talk to you today about the skill of listening. And I'd like to sort of play off a passage in Jeremiah 42 and 43. The remnant of Israel is under the thumb of the Babylonians, and they're trying to figure out what their next move is. Do they stay in the land? Do they go down to Egypt and flee the Babylonians? And so they call in the prophet Jeremiah. All of the people look to Jeremiah to say, speak to us, get a word from the Lord, tell us what it is we ought to do. And so Jeremiah agrees and comes back 10 days later and says to them, here's what you need to do. You need to trust the Lord and stay in the land. Now this is a people who in every way, as you read the passage, indicate or seem to indicate that they're geared to listen to the Lord. They want to know what the Lord has to say. And so Jeremiah comes back with this sure word from the Lord. Stay in the land. Trust me. Let me be your fortress and your protection. And the people rise up and cry out, liar, liar, you're lying to us. You're lying to us. I mean, what an amazing thing. A people who profess a desire to listen, not listening at all, and hearing the word of the Lord and calling Jeremiah a liar, but really implicitly calling the Lord a liar as well. So one of the things this passage does, it just reminds me of how hard it is for us to listen. And if it's this hard for us to listen to the Lord, I mean, we have to recognize we're cut from the same cloth as these ancient Israelites. If it's this hard for us to listen to the Lord, then how hard is it for us to listen to our spouse? How hard to listen to our children, our friends, our neighbors? And of course, the reason it's so hard to listen to God and so hard to listen to those around us is the problem of our fundamental orientation. My fundamental orientation is to me. Everything I think about is self-referential. The gravitational pull of the self draws everything in my life into the circle of referring to me. I need constantly to defend myself. I need constantly to justify myself, to explain myself, to get you to understand me as I want you to understand me. And we're all guilty of this in one way or another, to some degree or another. And so that's why we talk so much. We talk, rather than listening. I remember one time at my church in Baltimore when Jack Miller was preaching, and he was talking about the problem of husbands listening to their wives. And he said, I've got 6 words for you husbands. Shut up, shut up, shut up. A rather bold statement, but husbands need to hear that. We all need to hear that. And it reminds us why it takes the death and resurrection of Jesus to make us good listeners. Because first, we need to be freed from the gravitational pull of self. But secondly, we need to be freed for a new way of relating to others. And it's Jesus dying and rising that makes us new creatures. And in that dying and rising of Jesus to which we're united, we're made new creatures in Christ. And we receive the gift of the Spirit. And of course, one of the things the Spirit gives us is the fruit of the Spirit. And so one aspect of the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. I really can be quiet. I really can control my tongue. I really can stop talking in order to listen to you. And you see, that fruit of the Spirit also involves kindness. I'm free now, having learned in part at least, as I grow to control my tongue, able to offer you the basic human kindness of listening to you. The human kindness that allows me to relate in a new way to others. Because you see, sometimes we need to hear not just easy things, we need to hear hard things. And it's so easy when we hear hard things to shift gears into talking again, to shift gears to self-justifying and defensive kinds of language. So why am I telling you this today? Well, I'm telling you this today because I think we're in a season of having to listen to hard things. It's surprising, we thought nothing could knock coronavirus off the front page, but racial injustice, this new season of awareness, this new season of recognizing our past and present with respect to racial injustice has become a season of hard things that has knocked coronavirus off the front page. And I think in knocking coronavirus off the front page, it calls us to a season of listening. Listening to hard things, listening to hard stories, listening to pain, listening to tales of oppression and injustice. You see, we have to recognize that, as one writer says, listening is about being present, not just about being quiet. Because you know how it goes. Sometimes when you're quiet before another, it's because you're preparing your response. And I notice in this season that so often I'm hearing people, when African Americans cry out about their pain, offering, but what about responses? But what about this? But what about that? This isn't a time for what about responses. This is a time for being present. This is a time for really listening. This is a time for not just being quiet, but engaging another through the act of listening that says, I want to hear your story. I want to hear your pain. I want to learn from what it is you know and you've experienced. And so what I invite you to do this week is reach deep with Jesus. Ask him where it is that you're resistant to listening. Ask him why it is you're resistant to listening. And engage again in the art of listening as you listen to the stories around you, the stories of pain and injustice. And so we hope to see you next week.